I'm not a technology expert. I'm not an AI expert. I can't tell you the technological threats, ins, outs, possibilities for curtailment. But I can say that we have to find a way to safeguard as much of our data as possible, and frankly, to take a lot of it offline. And I know that's counterintuitive, but if we don't start creating offline reserves of things that really matter to us, we risk losing them because they are extremely vulnerable. And I can tell you from my own research that digital decay is a real thing, that a lot of knowledge we think exists because we're inundated with information all day long is deteriorating at a rate faster than you could possibly imagine. Give you an example. I built a database of 423 battle cases. We're going back and updating modern ones. We're going back and updating that now. I've got over 1,000 prospective cases. And I've been going back through some of the older ones, and all the links and files and everything are still connected, and half of them are, or at least half of them are dead. They no longer exist, and that knowledge no longer exists. There are authors of published articles, and their published articles no longer exist because the magazine, the online magazine is gone and they never printed anything. So that's something to think about, how we preserve knowledge.
Yeah, I really appreciate you emphasizing that. I think that is not on many people's radar.
Nor should it be, right? I mean, there should be people like us talking about this, people in government that are really putting a lot of thought and effort into this. And I fear that that's just not the case, certainly in the United States.
Yeah, well, just as you're talking, it reminds me so much about how much important knowledge, the stuff you really need to know in those tough moments is, passed down from folks who had experiences and, kind of shared that wisdom with you. It's not found with a chatbot trying to, navigate because life is much more complex and nuanced than what kind of, I think, the binary world presents.
What is the joy in life if everything is a Bayesian satisficed answer? How miserable. And I know that there are people who are already miserable and lonely and alone,
Mhm.
and AI is their only possibility for companionship. That's a very small percentage of the population. The vast majority of us, and there's plenty of scientific evidence to back this up, we need human connection. We need to share knowledge with each other. And one of the things, the conversations that I have with colleagues who use AI frequently and defend its use, and they describe LLM's use as working with LLMs as if they're a partner. My counter argument to them is no, you're robbing your colleagues of an engagement every time you refer to an LLM. So you're asking this really just a statistical inference machine, right? How to think about a certain problem, and it may do a pretty good job of it. But what would you have done if the LLM weren't there? You would have called me. You would have called one of our other
Mhm.
colleagues. We would have had an interesting debate. You would have triggered an idea in my mind. I would have we would have reconnected a little bit or strengthened our
Mhm.
connection. I would have learned something that you were doing, and you would have learned something that I was doing, and that's how we typically shared knowledge up until about 2 or 3 years ago. We still have those conversations, but they're weaker than they were in the past, and I fear that we're going to lose them increasingly again with that monogenerational approach to behavior, not just knowledge, but also human behavior.